All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me this morning. So we'll go ahead and get started here with William N. So William N says, you have been watching the video for forward shaft lean. Does forward shaft lean apply to the in the driver swing as well as the irons? So you're going to be swinging the driver in pretty much the same way. The only difference between your driver really and the irons is that with the driver, the ball is teed up. So you can hit up into the golf ball. And that's what you actually want to do to be able to get the ball to launch high with low spin, which is going to be best for distance. But with an iron, the ground's in the way. So we have to come down and make ball first contact. So with the driver, the ball is more forward in the stance. The appearance of forward shaft lean is either not going to be there at all, or it's going to be a very, very small amount. So if I angle this down a little bit, I can kind of show you what's going on there. So with an iron, I'm coming in, my ball position, is somewhere in this area. See it a little bit better here. So my ball position is somewhere in this area right here. And I'm coming down, and there I am at contact, and I've got forward shaft lean. But with my driver, because the ball is further up in my stance, I'm coming in, and I'm coming in more like this. You can see the ball position would be more in that area. You can see there's really not much forward shaft lean right there. That's going to be, but my hands are virtually in the same spot. So with an iron, I'm like right there, but with a driver, I'm like right there. So not a lot of forward shaft lean. The appearance isn't going to be there, but you're going to be swinging the club in basically the same way. But because the ball is more forward in your stance, there's going to be less of an appearance of forward shaft lean there. All right, so let's keep moving forward here. So go ahead and post your questions if you got them on there so we can continue to answer them. So Bob L says, I know I read to get down more and my hands lower in the downswing, but then I have a tendency to chunk. Help. So it's hard to say what's going on exactly without seeing your swing, but it sounds like you're probably coming down steep. When you come down steep, you essentially have to release that club early because you've got to cast the club to get it to come back down on plane. So you probably just need to get that club shallowing out and the club face squaring earlier, and that's going to be working through the move course. It's hard for me, like I said, it's hard for me to know exactly what's going on without seeing your swing, but you're releasing that club early, and there's all kinds of reasons why you might be doing that. You could be casting, you could be coming down steep. There's all sorts of things. So what I'd recommend doing is looking at your swing on video. And if you see that you're casting the club from the very beginning, meaning from the very, very start of the swing, you're seeing this club already doing that kind of thing, casting. If you're seeing that, then you're probably going to want to work on the top speed lag course. And if you're seeing that you're coming down steep, and what I mean by that is in the downswing, if you see this club at a very vertical angle. If you're looking from down the line here, you're seeing this club in a more vertical position at this point in the downswing. You see the butt end of the club is pointing inside the golf ball. That's going to be a steep position. That's going to be, you're typically going to chunk that if you don't stand up as you're coming into contact. So that's going to be the move course and working on that. If you'd like me to pinpoint exactly what's going on and what we can do to get you right on track, I'd recommend signing up for my unlimited swing reviews. If there aren't any spots available, then I'd recommend signing up for the wait list. So to get to that page, all you got to do is click Get a Review at the top of the page there. That'll take you to the swing review page where you can sign up for the waiting list. If you're looking to work on the move, just click the house icon or the top speed lag course. But click the house icon. That's going to take you to the home page where it lists all the courses on the website, and you can click the move or the top speed lag course depending on what's going on there. So Janice K says, I'm finding it overwhelming to navigate the TSG system. Any hints? I think the easiest way to do it is always going to be from the home page. So if you click the house icon, that's going to take you to the home page. And on the home page, you're going to see, if you scroll down, you'll see a list of all the courses. And it's easy to navigate to all those. So once you click on a course, you can go to the right-hand side on the course, and you can expand all of those to see all of the lessons in the course. You can also scroll down on that page once you get to the course, and you can expand those to see all the lessons in the course. But what I'd recommend doing is really just sticking in one course at a time and work through level one. There's basically several ways you can go through the Tatsui system. You can either do one, you can go through level one of each piece. You can do that, or you can go through each section. So you can go through the whole stable fluid spine and then go to the power turn and go through the whole level one, level two, level three. You can do it that way as well. Either way, it is really up to you. It just depends on what you want to do. You can look at kind of go through and get an idea of what all of the pieces of the Tatsui system are. And then, just by watching, basically, if you watch level one of all the videos, you'll get, or level one of each course, you'll get an idea of what it all is. And then you can actually look at your swing and see where you are off the most. So maybe your spine angle is pretty good and your power turn is really poor. So it would be best probably to work on that power turn first and get that in good order. So it really just depends on how you feel about what you're seeing. But if you want to make sure you're going through and make sure you're getting through and getting all the pieces, then you may want to work through level one and then work of each piece, and then go back and work through level two of each piece, then go back and work through level three. But if you want, like I said, if you want, we have this set up to where you can go through it on your own. But with that being said, there's no way we can set something up to where you will for sure be working on the things that are going to help you the most. We kind of have to cover all the bases whenever we have a program like that. So if you want to kind of not necessarily cut corners, but to improve more quickly, then you'll have to do that with the help of an instructor being able to look at your swing and tell you, okay, this is what you need to work on to improve the most right now. And that's through Unlimited Swing Reviews. And like I said, if you want to join Unlimited Swing Reviews, all you got to do is click the Get a Review at the top of the screen there. That's going to take you to the Swing Reviews page. I don't have any spots available right now, so join the waiting list so that you can get notified whenever spots become available next. All right. So go ahead and keep posting your questions. We got one here from David H. He said, you mentioned the impact snap as a good tool to use in the winter when you were stuck inside. I was able to test one and was expecting lead hand flexion. I've been working on that, but was surprised at how much ulnar deviation it created. However, I have the term right, left thumb pronates down. Is this correct wrist motion? So that impact snap is going to put that in the correct position. So that ball is going to come. It's going to be right there. If it's up here, you're too much in that ulnar deviation. If it's down here, because when you're coming into contact, you're definitely in ulnar deviation as you're coming in there. So it's your hand is not like this. It's in ulnar deviation at contact. If you look at as I'm coming down, if I had my wrist kind of in a neutral position, I'd be coming through like that, right? That's not what I'm gonna do. My wrists have got to be in ulnar deviation here. Some. It's not going to be incomplete. It's not going to be like that, but it's going to be definitely some to get into this position right here. So it's ulnar deviation. It's also some wrist flexion at contact. There really isn't going to be that much lead wrist flexion. I mean, it depends on how strong or weak your grip is. So just to go over that real quick, let's say I have a very weak grip, meaning my thumb is rotated more on this side of the grip or on top of the grip. That would be a fairly weak grip. If I put this down, the V that's created, the crease that's created between my thumb and my hand here is basically pointing straight up to my chin. That'd be considered a weak grip. So in order to get this kind of grip to contact with some forward shaft lean in a square club face, I've really got to bow my wrist more to make that happen. So at contact, forward shaft lean and a square club face is going to look like that. You can see I've got more bowing in my wrist in this point. Now let's say I have a very strong grip where Now I've taken my thumb and I'm putting it more on the outside of the grip, the crease in my hands pointing outside of my shoulder. This would be an extreme, pretty strong grip. If I come into contact with a square club face and forward shaft lean, look at my wrist now. It's pretty flat. It may even appear to be cupped when looking from face on. So there's not going to be a ton of it's going to be fairly flat to a little bit of bowed wrist, depending on how weak or strong your grip is. This is part of the reason why I usually advocate a stronger grip for most people, because it's going to be easier to get some forward shaft lean for most people. Now, some people, it may find it easy with a neutral grip or with a weak grip to be able to get that. But I typically like to see students using a neutral to strong grip. But like I said, that doesn't mean that you can't play great golf or better golf with a weak grip. It's just, in general, it's usually a little bit better because it's easier to get forward shaft lean and to get that club face squared up. Otherwise, there's just so much you've got to do to make that happen. Now, with the trail wrist, that's when you're going to see more of that extension position. That's where this is probably the biggest difference between amateurs and tour players. Is amateur golfers are coming through with a flat trail wrist at contact. They're usually coming in like that. Tour players or professional players, really great players, are coming in with their wrist more in extension. So they're coming in more like that. So wrist is in extension there. So that's mainly what's going on there. But yeah, both wrists are going to be in some ulnar deviation as they're coming into contact. As you are here, you're in more radial deviation. So radial deviation, thumbs up. And then as you're coming down, you're going to be coming into more ulnar deviation as you're coming in there. All right, so John C says, how can I ensure I get the best impact and press the ball maximum distance? Presume I never hit a golf ball before. Well, there's lots of things going on there. So one, you need to make sure that there's basically 4 pieces to contact that are really, really important. So number one is going to be your strike location. So you've got to hit that ball in the center of the club face. If you hit the ball out on the toe, out on the heel, thin, too high on the face, you're not going to be able to get as much compression on the ball. So that's number one. Number two is that your face needs to be square. If you're coming in with the face way open, way closed, you're going to be hitting the ball with, offline and most likely with a glancing blow. So the ball's just not going to be compressed very much. So if you think about if I'm hammering a nail right into a piece of wood, I'm not going to go at this nail like this, right? I'm going to go straight down into that nail so I can drive as much of that into the piece of wood as much as possible. So that's a big one there. Also, your path, the direction the club head is moving through contact, you want that to be, coming in and meeting at 0 degrees. You don't want to be swinging way into out or way out to in, because again, you're going to be hitting that ball with a glancing blow most likely if you do that. And obviously, you need to make ball first contact. You can't come down and hit the ground first. If you hit the ground before the golf ball, you're taking energy out of the club. That's not going to allow it to hit the golf ball very well. To go beyond that, speed, you need to have some club head speed. If you're swinging really super slow, you're not really going to get much distance or speed out of it. And then another piece beyond that would be forward shaft lean. So if we're adding loft, if we're coming in, we have no forward shaft lean, whenever they talk about lofts on clubs, the static loft is what it's referred to. They're talking about that when the shaft is straight up and down. So you would be hitting the club with that loft at contact if you didn't have any forward shaft lean. But your average tour player leans the shaft forward by about 30%. So if you're talking, if you have a 30-degree club, they're hitting that with about 20 degrees of loft typically. Somewhere in that range. So if you can compress it more, the less loft that you have. That's why shots that are hit with the driver are more compressed than shots that are hit with a wedge. Because a wedge, if you think about it in a sense, how we talked about face and path before, about how that is, those need to be lined up. We don't want to be hitting that with a glancing blow. Well, the more loft you have on the club, the more of a glancing blow there is, because that's just the same thing. It's just in this direction. So you're going to hit a shot hit with a wedge is going to be more of a glancing blow than it is with a 3-iron or with a driver. So the less loft you have, the more compression that you can have on the ball. So de-lofting it. So just to go through those, it's basically 6 things we talked about. Number 1, strike location. Number 2, face angle, the direction the club face is pointing at contact. Number 3 is club path. So that's the direction the club head is moving at contact. Number 4 is basically ground contact. So just making sure that you make contact with the ground after the golf ball and not before the golf ball. Obviously, this is for shots that are off the turf. Number 5 is going to be speed. You got to have some speed in there. Otherwise, you're not going to get much compression on the ball. And lastly, number 6 is forward shaft lean. So that's basically often referred to as dynamic loft, which is the loft that you're presenting to the golf ball at contact. De-lofting the face gives you more compression on the ball. All right, so John Z says, Paul Azinger went knuckles up through impact. Doesn't that mean he didn't have to make the move? So I believe that Paul Azinger had an extremely strong grip. So I just talked about that a little bit ago about how if you have a very, very strong grip, there's a little bit less you have to do to get that club face squared up at contact when you have forward shaft lean. But remember, the move is actually a combination of 2 things. The move is a combination of 1, shallowing out the club, and 2, squaring up the face with forward shaft lean impact. So every tour player is doing the move. It's just a matter of, they may have to do a little bit less to make it happen, but all tour players are shallowing out the club. There isn't a single tour player that's coming down steep in transition. So what I mean by that is this would be, coming down steep would be coming down like this. When you're coming down like this, you're either going to throw this club into the ground behind the golf ball. You're either going to come over the top, or you might do a combination of those 2 things. Or what most people do is they'll stand up to get that club to come back down on plane, because when you stand up, it lifts the handle. When it lifts the handle, it drops the head. Now the head's coming down on plane, and now you can hit a good golf shot. The problem is that when you stand up, you have to flip the club to get to the golf ball, and you lose that compression because you're adding loft to the club face. So that's not what tour players are doing. Tour players are all doing the move. They're all shallowing out the club, and they're all squaring up that face earlier as they come into contact so that they can get forward shaft lean and compression. But if you have a super strong grip like Paul Azinger did, if you have a really strong grip like this, I don't have to turn this handle very much to square it up and get forward shaft lean. So he's still doing the move. He just may do it to a lesser extent than somebody, it's less manipulation you have to do with the wrist in order to get that club face square with forward shaft lean at contact. If you have a really weak grip, you're going to have to do a lot more. So basically, if you look here, I could say if I put my thumb right on top of the shaft there, and I line that up with the face, I have to do that to square it up. Whereas to get into that same position, if I have a really strong grip, I don't have to do a lot to get that squared up. So that's basically essentially what that is, what's going on there. So John C. All right, so let me answer Bob's question real quick, and then I'll go into that. So Bob L says, I have lag halfway down when left arm is parallel. All right, then I start to lose lag. I think because I am throwing my hands toward the ball. This is a very hard habit to change. Suggestion. So that is when you should start losing lag, is when that lead arm is parallel to the ground or a little bit after. That's actually when you want to see the max lag position happens about right here. And that's when you're going to start losing lag. Now, it happens fairly slowly in the beginning. Now, what you're probably doing is you're getting lag, but you're releasing the club early. That's probably what you're trying to say there. And there's all kinds of reasons why that be happening. Well, one, if you're getting the lag, then we know that the casting is not the reason. So we can cross that off. But it's most likely either because you're coming down steep, or it's the way that you square up the face. And there's all kinds of reasons why you might square the club face up in this way. So I talked about a minute ago, shallowing out the club. If you are coming down steep, and you can look at this on video, look at your swing from down the line. If you see this club, this butt end of the club pointing anywhere inside the golf ball when you're in that max lag position, that position where that lead arm is about parallel to the ground, if you're seeing this club pointed anywhere inside the golf ball, that's considered steep. And when you're in that steep position, you've got to stand up to get the club to come back down on plane. And when you stand up, you release that club early. Even if you're getting lag, you're going to release that club early to get that club to come back down plane. Otherwise, your other options are to swing over the top or stick that club in the ground right behind the ball, or do kind of a combination of those two things. So in order to hit a good golf shot, you'll have to stand up. Now, what happens is, like I said, you'll release that club early, and you'll lose some compression on the ball. So what you got to do is you got to get that club shallowing out. So now I don't have to make a compensation in my swing, and I can just continue to rotate through impact and keep it on plane. Now, the other part is you can be shallowing it out just fine, but if you are the way that you square the face is by flipping the face through, because you're used to that, because you're used to standing up and having to flip, then you'll have to change that as well. And that's how you square up the face. So if I come into contact like this, no forward shaft lean, right? And I have my wrist, my trail wrist is flat. My lead wrist is kind of broken down here. You can see it's kind of starting to cup, but I have no forward shaft lean, a square club face. If I were to just push my hands forward and get to where I'm coming in and I'm releasing this club out in front, but I don't change these wrist angles, my club face is wide open. So what I have to do is I have to turn that handle down to square the face, and that's the second part of the move. So the first part of the move is shallowing the club out. Second part of the move is squaring that face earlier so that I can rotate into contact and have forward shaft lean and a square club face. Turning the handle down is what squares the club face when you have forward shaft lean. So if you still flip the club and you turn the handle down, you're just going to close the club face and the ball's just going to shoot left. So you got to be getting that club releasing out in front. So it's got to be with the trail hand and the lead hand working together to turn that handle down to get that club face squared up at contact. And that's going to be from the move course. So that's why I'd recommend you most likely need to work on. In order for me to know exactly what's going on, like I said, I need to see your swing. We need to do unlimited swing reviews or something like that. But just based on what you're telling me, it sounds like the move course. And there's all kinds of reasons why you may do this. I think a big reason why is because I think that this position, this trail hand bent back position at contact, I think that feels weak to a lot of people. It feels very fast and strong to really push that trail rest through because, if you're right-handed, your trail hand is your right hand. So in order to feel more powerful, you may feel like you're really pushing through with that trail hand, your dominant hand. So that's why I think a lot of people struggle with it. So I feel like a lot of people are trying to get more power, so they really push through with that trail hand. It could be because maybe you're not very coordinated with that lead hand to be able to get it to do what you want. So you're really trying to control the club as much as you can with the trail hand, and that's how you square the face, is by doing that. But then if that's the case, you can still kind of feel like you're doing that to square the face instead of that. It could be because you're trying to help the ball up in the air, because if you do that action, right, that's adding loft, that's getting the ball more up in the air. Whereas if I do this, it feels like I may not be able to get the ball up in the air because I may not leave any loft on the face to be able to get it up in the air. But really the reality is you need to trust the loft on the club and let the loft of the club do the work for you. Odds are you're not going to take all of the loft off of here. There's typically, the shaft's leaning forward. Like I said, tour players are taking about 30% of the loft off of the face. So if they're hitting a 6-iron, which is going to be roughly 32 degrees or something like that, typically a 6-iron, right? They're taking about 30% of loft off the face. That means they're hitting, the ball with something like 20 or so degrees of loft. So the move course is most likely what you need to work on. To get to the move course, all you gotta do is click the house icon at the top of the page. That's gonna take you to the home page. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses on the website, and you'll want to click the move to get started. So John C says, can you show the difference between a weak and a strong grip? So basically what a weak grip means is if you're right-handed, it just means that the best way to kind of think about it as a weak and strong grip is you create this crease in your hand here between your thumb, and the side of your hand. So that looks something like that. You can see I have this crease. So if I put this on the club, I grip this club with a really weak grip, that crease is essentially pointing right up to my chin if I have a weak grip. So you can see it looks something like that. If I have a strong grip, that crease is, or that what they call the V's in the grip, is going to be pointing more this way. So a neutral grip would be where that V is. So this would be more of a neutral grip right here. That V is pointing basically right between my ear and my shoulder. That'd be considered neutral. If I get that V out here, and now you can see I'm rotating my hand on the grip this way, that's making it stronger. And you can see now that V is pointing outside my shoulder. So that would be a pretty extreme, strong grip right there. The V is pointing outside of my hand. So that would be the difference between a weak and a strong grip. And typically, I tell people anywhere from a neutral to a strong grip is the best especially if you're struggling with flipping and forward shaffling, because it's just going to be easier, because we talked about, getting in this position at contact where I'm squaring the club face and I have forward shaffling. It's just easier to get into this position at contact if you are doing that, if you're in that kind of position. But it doesn't mean that you can't play great golf with a weak grip. I mean, there's a lot of players out there that play great golf with a weak grip. It's going to be easier typically. So I would give it a try, see if it helps you be able to get a little bit more forward shaffling. It may not make any difference at all. It just depends, but that's basically the difference between a weak and a strong grip. And then he says, also, why is it called a strong or weak grip? That's a good question. I mean, I don't know the exact origins for that. It's not referring to how tightly you're holding on to the club, but basically, it's easier to make that. Probably the reason is that, like I said, it's easier to de-loft the face, make the face stronger, make the loft stronger, right? So if you're thinking about the loft difference between a 3-iron and a sand wedge, right? The loft is stronger on a 3-iron. So it's easier to de-loft it when you have a stronger grip. So that might be why. I don't know the exact origins, though. All right, so Joe D says, should I have 0 ulnar deviation in my lead hand at impact or some deviation? If some deviation, how much deviation? You're definitely going to have ulnar deviation in both wrists at impact. It's not going to be full on. It's not going to be like this, but you're going to have some. So if you think about, this would be a wrist neutral position right here. This is a wrist neutral position. If I come into contact with a wrist neutral position, right, this is what my swing looks like, right? My club head's not down at the golf ball. I got to have some ulnar deviation here. So I have to do a little bit of that as I'm coming into contact. So there's definitely going to be some ulnar deviation there for sure. So Jeffrey J says, what is your recommended sequence of video lessons for picking up program from a layoff when you just feel stuff and not very golf swing? Let me read that again. Sorry. So what is your recommended sequence of video lessons for picking up program from a layoff when you just feel stiff and not very golf swing athletically? Well, I'd just be working through the system just like the way that we have it laid out. I would start out in the Top Speed Golf system with your stable fluid spine. The way that you can work through it, and I went through this earlier, you can go through it either way you want. You can go through level 1 of each piece of the Top Speed Golf system, or you can go through, for instance, I would start out in the stable fluid spine and the way that it's laid out. So stable fluid spine, power turn, lag, compression line, and straight line release. I would go through them in that order, the way that we have them laid out. You can go through level 1 of each of those in that order. And so you go level 1, stable fluid spine, then you go level 1 power turn, then level 1 lag, then level 1 compression line, then level 1 straight line release. And then you can go back to level 2 of stable fluid spine, level 2 power turn, so on and so on. You can do that, or you can go in the stable fluid spine and you can go level 1, level 2, level 3, and then you can go power turn, level 1, level 2, level 3, and then you can go lag, level 1, level 2, level 3. It's really up to you. But either way, if you're wanting to go through it on your own as kind of a self-guided type of thing, that's what I'd recommend doing. Is just starting in that stable fluid spine. Definitely want to start there. Make sure that you're in good shape there, because that's really the foundation for everything. If your spine's way off, it's just going to make everything else a lot more difficult. So, for instance, if your spine is leaning toward the target at the top of the swing, it's going to be hard to get that big shoulder turn. You're typically from this position here, you're going to want to cast the club. It's going to be hard to get lag. So I'd definitely be making sure that your spine is nice and stable first, and then work through either level 1 of each of the pieces after that, or work through the entire stable fluid spine, then go to the power turn, work through the entire power turn, and then go through the rest of the system in that fashion. It's really up to you. Neither one's going to be necessarily better than the other. It's just whatever you want to do. It's completely up to you. All right. So let's keep on moving through here. We got some questions. All right. So James R says, has anyone else noticed difficulty with their Alp no editing after the latest iPhone update? I don't have an iPhone, so I'm not really sure what's going on. But I haven't heard anything about there being any issues. So he goes on to say, it used to be super easy to trim 2 to 3 second slow-mo swings from 1 to 2 minute video. Not anymore. Sorry, I'm not really sure. Easy trim 2 to 3 seconds. Let's go with their app. Well, we don't have an app, so I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but so it's not. We don't have an app, so whatever app you're talking about, unfortunately, there isn't a way I can help. All right, so Richard S says, why is releasing the club out in front more powerful than hitting with a right hand? Is there more speed, or is it just that you are de-lofting the club, making it less lofted? Yeah, so that's basically, so part of it is speed, and part of it is de-lofting the face. So if you are releasing this club early, you're burning up all this speed out here, and the club is actually decelerating as it's getting to the golf ball. So we need to get this club releasing out in front so it's accelerating as it's getting to the golf ball. So that's a big part of it there. And then the other part of it is de-lofting it, making this more powerful. Because basically, if you have it like this is a 3-iron, okay? So roughly probably 20-some degrees of loft or something like that. That's the static loft on it. If I don't have any forward shaft lean, that's what I'm hitting the ball with. But if I have forward shaft lean, if I'm taking 30% of the loft off this face like a typical tour player does, then I'm able to hit this ball with a lot more powerful loft on. I'm basically going from hitting it with 24 degrees of loft to hitting it to 16 degrees of loft. That's a big difference there. So if you think about it in a sense of, hitting the difference between, because there's typically about 4 degrees of loft between every club, right? So if you're de-lofting a club 8 degrees, that's essentially taking your 8-iron and turning it into a 6-iron. Now, the length of the club is not the same, so you're not going to get exactly the same speed, but the loft of the club is going to be similar to that of a 6-iron of someone who has no forward shaft lean. So it can definitely make a big difference for sure. All right, so John C says, to get more power in the swing, should I try to thrust my hips and rotate them as fast as I can? So that's part of it. You definitely want to build momentum with your lower body. if you're looking to gain club head speed, I highly recommend doing the 20-minute distance fix. We do talk about using the lower body and getting that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But basically, the 20-minute distance fix is by far the best thing that you can do to pick up club head speed. And if you're looking to improve your game, like you've got the system down pretty good, or for the most part, everything's pretty good there. If you're just looking to pick up club head speed, or let's say don't worry about the system and you're hitting the ball pretty well, you just don't hit the ball far enough. Well, the 20-minute distance fix is definitely going to be the thing that you want to do, because there's really no higher correlation to lowering your score than raising your club head speed. And that's what that 20-minute distance fix is all about. So one of the main things that you can do in the 20-minute distance fix to raise your club head speed is increasing your range of motion. So that's going to involve getting a bigger shoulder turn. So if you watch here, I see a lot of people with shoulder turns like this. They're just not turning their shoulders very much. You need to get those hips, or those hips turning, get those shoulders turning. So now if I'm in this position, I have a lot more space and time to create speed in the downswing. The more space and time I have to accelerate the club, the more club head speed I can generate. So that's part of it. The other part of it is getting more vertical with the swing. So I see a lot of golf swings where guys come across like this, where the hands are really, really low. They're coming underneath the shoulders here, really, really flat. It's really hard to get speed from this position because there's just not enough space and time to accelerate the club. Get those hands up here, get them more above the shoulders. Now I have a lot more space and time to accelerate the club, and I can create speed. So that's really the first part of the 20-minute distance fix. The second part is what I would encompass all is sequencing. So that involves loading up, getting a good weight transfer, using the lower body to get that weight transfer. That's the hips going on, generating some lag, and then releasing that lag as quickly as you can. So if you think about any powerful athletic movement, there is always a loading up phase and then a weight transfer phase. So if you think about a baseball pitcher, right? Your baseball pitcher, Garrett Cole, he doesn't stay on his lead foot and just go like that. He loads up. When he winds up, he loads up, and then he gets a momentum transfer toward the plate and fires that ball in there. So there's got to be a loading up part of our backswing. We got to get nice and loaded up on our trail foot, and then we got to get a good momentum transfer to our lead side. And that's what allows us to be able to rotate the hips, and that's what allows us to be able to create momentum with our lower body. We've got to be able to create some momentum with the lower body. You can get a lot of speed from your arms. In fact, probably 80-85% of your speed comes from just the arms and the shoulders only. You can hit the ball pretty fast doing that, but it's not going to be the most efficient and fastest way to do it. You got to be able to create momentum with the lower body, and that comes from loading up properly and then getting that proper weight shift to your lead side. So if you think about it in this sense, there's a video on the website called the Momentum Train video. It's in the straight line release course. And Clay, in that video, he talks about how there's a train that's going 60 miles per hour. And then you take another train that's also going 60 miles per hour, and you just put it on the roof of that one. And then you take another train and put it on the roof of that one. So you have three trains. They're all going 60 miles per hour, and they're all stacked on top of each other. Well, that top train is going 180 miles per hour, 60 plus 60 plus 60 in relationship to the ground. But it's only going 60 miles per hour in relationship to the train that's just below it. So that's what's happening in the golf swing. If you don't really use your lower body and use the hips to create momentum, you're taking a train out of the equation. So now if I take my hips out of it, I'm taking that bottom train out of there, and I don't have as much speed. Now, not all the trains are the same speed. I'm not going to be able to swing my hips as fast as I do my arms. It just doesn't work that way. But in order to get the most efficient amount of speed, I've got to get my lower body working and rotating. And that comes from loading up properly, getting nice and loaded up, not sliding the hips or not staying on my lead side, getting nice and loaded up, feeling that pressure in my trail foot, and then getting that momentum transfer to my lead side, getting that pressure in that lead foot so that I can use that lead leg to rotate my body and create that momentum. So that's a big part of it for sure. So it doesn't come down to I'm just going to thrust my hips and make that happen. In fact, thrusting your hips may not be a good feeling to have, because a lot of times thrusting your hips looks a lot like that, and that's not going to help you to get speed. That's going to make that club drop underneath, and you're going to end up flipping. What you want to feel is that you're pushing into the ground and you're rotating that hip open. You almost want to feel like your backside is against a wall here, and you're staying on that wall throughout the swing. If I thrust, I'm moving away from the wall. So you want to feel like you're pushing into the ground and really rotating your lower body through there. And that's going to allow you to create momentum to create speed. So that's a big part of it. The third and fourth part of that sequencing is the generating some lag. So we want to get a nice angle of lag here. We don't want to be casting the club. We want to get a nice angle of lag. And then we don't just want to get this lag and drag the club through. There's no sense in getting lag unless we are going to release it. So we want to get that lag and then release it as hard as you can out in front. And that's going to allow you to get some really good speed as well. So if you're looking for club head speed, we want to go through the 20-minute distance fix course. It's very easy to get to. All you have to do is go to the top of the page there, hover your mouse cursor over the instruction tab. That'll expand a menu, and then you'll see right there the 20-minute distance fix. Or you can always go to the home page, click the house icon, to get to the home page. Scroll down on the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses. That 20-minute distance fix should be at the top there. So John C says, could you step through the actual sequence of the proper swing? Just all the basic steps. So yeah, that's basically what I just talked about there. We want to get nice. We want to get nice and loaded up, stay stable with our spine, get a nice big shoulder turn. And then we want to get our weight shifting to our lead side. We want to feel that pressure in the lead foot. We want to feel like it happens from the ground up. So we want to get the hips going. Then we want to get the torso going. Then we want to get the shoulders going. The shoulders get the arms going. The arms get the hands going. The hands get the club going. So that's kind of the sequence that you want to have. And if you have that kind of sequence, you'll be able to generate lag, because you're generating lag as your hips are starting to rotate open. Then as that sequence comes up through the body, now I'm starting to release that club, and I'm getting that nice straight line release out in front. I'm getting that club to release out in front. If that sequence isn't happening in the correct way, you're more than likely going to see casting. You're going to see it's going to be more difficult to generate that lag and do the things that we need to do to be able to create that speed. So we want it all to happen from the top of the swing. From the very top of the swing, we want that to be happening from the ground up. So feet pushing into the ground, that's getting the hips to rotate. The hips are getting the torso to rotate. The torso is getting the shoulders to rotate. The shoulders are getting the arms are getting the hands, and the hands are getting the club to fire at the golf ball. All right. So Andres V says, what type of approach shot do you recommend on very firm fairways where the bounce does not work? So the bounce will still work on firm fairways. It's just a matter of getting that ball first contact. That's really the main thing. Is you just got to make sure that you get ball first contact. So you hit the same shot. It's just you need to make ball first contact. So if you need to choke up on the club a little bit to give you a little bit more control to make that happen, that's completely fine. You can also open the face a little bit more to expose a little bit more of the bounce. So, the bounce still works on firm ground. It's just, it's not going to dig. If you have the club like this, if you have this leading edge exposed and coming down into the turf, it's going to dig. So whether you're on firm or soft or whatever, the only difference between, I think, what you're talking about being firm and soft is that the ball is not sitting up like it's on a tee. The bounce is still there. You're still going to be able to use it. It's just that the ball is not sitting up on the tee, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. So you can actually open this face a little bit more. So if I have it like that, there's not a lot of bounce exposed here. But if I open it, now you can see I've exposed some bounce right here. So that make it a little bit easier to slide on the turf. So I would really hit the same shot. You're just going to need to make sure that you get ball first contact. You can't get the ball. You can't hit the ground 3 inches before the golf ball and get away with it. And that club's going to dig. So if you do that, and then if you can give yourself a little bit more margin for error by exposing a little bit more bounce, but understand that that's going to add more loft too. So you may need to swing a little bit harder, but choking up on the club can give you a little bit more, a little bit more of a control of the club as well. But if you're looking for, great pitching, like a whole system and course that you can go through, we have a great course for that. We have the wedge system. Highly recommend going through our Tusby Golf wedge system. To get to that course, all you got to do is click the house icon. That's going to take you to the home page. If you scroll down the home page, you'll see the wedge system in there. All right. James R says, spell check, sorry. Has anyone noticed a difference with the iPhone slow-mo editing after November, December? Used to be super easy to edit 2 or 3 second snips from a longer full speed. Anyone experiencing this? I'm thinking, James, I'm not really sure what you're talking about. What are you editing? What are you do? This is probably not the place for this. If you have any instruction questions, I'll be happy to help, but I don't think that anybody's going to be help you with, because there's no specifics on exactly what. I don't know what you're using. We don't have an app or anything, so I'm not sure what it is you're even doing. So Douglas says, I signed up for UND. I don't know what that is. Okay. So Douglas T says, about 10 days ago, I paid for the special unlimited swing reviews, and I was supposed to get an email to schedule a 30-minute phone call before submitting videos. I still have not received the phone call. When will this take place? Phone call. Douglas, I would recommend contacting our support team. They'll be able to help you with that. Just email support@topspeedgolf.com. I'm not sure. I don't think I've had you sign up for unlimited swing reviews. So just looking at my list here, I don't have a Douglas on my unlimited swing reviews. So I'm guessing you might have signed up for Robin. And it's possible. So I'd be looking, I'd be looking in your spam or junk folder just to make sure that Robin hasn't emailed you from there. But contact our support team and they'll try to get that worked out for you. Again, this is probably not the place for this particular thing. So just email support@topspeedgolf.com and they'll be able to help you. Sorry, I wish I could help more. I'm just not sure what exactly is going on there. So John K says, I'm losing power on my drives. I was working hard to keep my right arm tight at impact. I started to duck, hook, and lose power. I then worked on a longer takeaway from the power, and the power came back. Can you please go over the proper takeaway from the driver? So, sure. So basically, the takeaway, I think people a little bit overanalyze their takeaway a little bit. There's really two main things in the takeaway that I like to see. So number one is I like to see a wide takeaway, and it sounds like that you worked on that to help you get a little bit more power. The reason why I like to see a wider takeaway is because if you look here, if I pick up this club just like that, and I don't have a wide takeaway, you can see this club has gotten the first parallel, but I haven't really moved my shoulders hardly at all. I've gone from here to there. So I'm exaggerating, but I haven't really moved my shoulders, got my shoulders involved. But if I get a wide takeaway and I get very little wrist set, what that allows me to do, if I go first parallel, now look how much more my shoulders have turned. That allows me to get my shoulders turning a lot earlier in the swing and it makes it a lot easier to get a nice full power turn at the top of the swing. So that's really, really important. I like to see a wide takeaway. And that doesn't mean that if you pick up the club, you're not going to get a good power turn. If you look at your swing and you are picking up the club, but you're getting a great shoulder turn, everything looks fantastic there, then you're in good shape. It's not a big deal. But typically those who pick up the club don't get that good power turn. They're usually going to, if they pick up the club, they're usually not going to get a good power turn. So that's the main thing. Another thing is, as far as the takeaway is concerned, first of all, the other thing that helps is if you are picking up the club, you're taking all the momentum out of the club as well. You're taking a lot of momentum out of the club, and it makes it a little bit harder to create lag in the downswing. So there's basically three things that create lag. One is thumbs up. So having this club in a thumbs up position, that's going to give you about 20 degrees. So I can only go, if that's a neutral position there, I can only angle my wrist back about 20 degrees. And that's with most people. So that's where part of the lag comes from. Another part of the lag comes from shallowing the club. So you can see I have this up 20 degrees. And now if I shallow it, you can see that angle starts to get a little bit tighter there. So that's the other part where lag comes from. And then lastly, lag comes from the momentum of the club. So if you see here, I've got both of those. I've got my thumbs up. I've got my club shallowed out. But if I add, look how much tighter that angle gets if I add momentum. And what that means is I'm swinging the club head in this direction, and then I switch directions. So it's got momentum going in that direction, but then I switch it, and that creates that sharp angle there. So that's where lag comes from. So if I really pick up this club, I'm taking away momentum from this club, and it's going to be harder for me to get that. Whereas if I have a wider takeaway, it's going to have more momentum going in that direction. It's going to be easier to get a little bit of lag. So now you can overdo that and lose a little bit of control of the club. So that could be, you got to find that happy medium. But basically, that's what I like to see is a nice wide takeaway. That's the main thing. Now, I think this is the thing that I think a lot of people focus on way too much, is bringing this club back on plane. They're worried about getting this club up in the right position. You're going to see a lot of players who bring this club inside. Look at JB Holmes. He brings that club way inside, and it comes down just fine in the downswing. So you only want to change this takeaway position, if you're clearly seeing things at the top of the swing that aren't allowing you to get in position. So here's why you typically hear instructors say you don't want to bring that club inside. And the reason is because when you bring this club inside, you're typically going to want to go like this. Because remember, we talked about momentum a minute ago. Well, this club is now going to have momentum to go that way in the downswing. And what's that way? That's over the top, the opposite of shallow. We always hear we want to shallow out the club. Makes it difficult to shallow out the club. That doesn't mean you can't shallow out the club. It just means it makes it difficult. But if you look at JB Holmes, he brings this club inside like this, and then he shallows it like that. So it really just depends. So I would only be changing this if you're clearly seeing, if you're seeing this club work inside and you're clearly seeing it come over, the momentum of the club taking it over the top. Otherwise, I wouldn't even mess with it because it's probably not going to help you. But if that's the case, but the main thing is get that nice wide takeaway, which it sounds like you're already doing. I think the best feeling for this is to feel, you probably heard a one-piece takeaway. The best feeling for this is to think your shoulders, your arms, your hands, and the club are one piece. That's just one piece that's all, singed together here. And that's how the club goes back. It just goes back in one piece. I think that's the easiest and best way to think about it. Because if you pick it up, that's not one piece right here. That piece is breaking down at the wrist. So feel like the swing is being started, with the shoulders starting to rotate this big piece going back. And that's going to help you to get more power in the swing. As far as that elbow is concerned, bringing that elbow into the body, it only matters at impact what's going on there. That's the only time. You want to disconnect. We hear this all the time. I hear it all the time. I need to be connected. I need to feel connected. I get people that come to clinics all the time, and they keep their arms on their body like this throughout the swing. Man, it's going to be hard to get some power when you're doing that because you're just not able to create any space to accelerate the club. You're not going to see very many tour players in that kind of position. I think Kuchar is probably the only one that I see who stays kind of in this position right here, and he's not a real long hitter. But if you look at anybody who's getting the ball out there, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Bubba Watson, all those guys, they are disconnecting, but they are connecting at impact. That's the only time that it matters to be connected is at impact. So let your arms fly, let your arms disconnect from your body in the backswing, and then we bring them back in the downswing as we're getting to contact. And then after contact, we want to let those disconnect again and let the arms kind of free flow through there. So don't worry about trying to stay connected throughout the swing. Now, theoretically, you could maybe be a little bit more consistent if you do that, but you're going to lose a lot of power if you do that. And power is a big part of consistency. I don't think a lot of people realize that power is a huge part of consistency. People come to me all the time. They just say they want to be consistent. And I say, okay, well, let's work on getting some club head speed. And then they're like, no, I want to be more consistent. That's going to make me less consistent. But if you think about it, power and distance actually makes you a more consistent player. So if you think about if you're someone who swings 90 miles per hour, okay, and you're on a 400-yard par 4, your best drive is probably about 225 yards. So if you hit your best drive out there, you still have 175 yards. So if you're swinging 90 miles per hour with your driver, 175 yards is probably going to be about a 5-iron. So you're hitting a 5-iron into the green. Now imagine you gain 10 miles per hour, which is what most people gain when they go to the 20-minute distance fix. That's about the average. I think the average is actually a little bit more than that. But that's about the average of what somebody's going to gain, about 10 miles per hour. 10 miles per hour equates to about 25 yards, 25, 30 yards of distance. So now imagine you're on your par 4, you're hitting your driver, and you hit it 250. So now you're 150 yards out. But not only have you gained club head speed with your driver, it goes through the whole bag. So maybe before you would hit your 8-iron 150 yards, but now you can hit your 9-iron 150 yards. So you've gone from hitting driver 5-iron to hitting driver 9-iron. How consistent do you think you're going to be versus hitting the driver 5-iron? You're going to be a lot more consistent. So I think you got to look at it in that sense. It's not always the way how you strike the ball. It's consistently how far you hit it, and that's going to lead to how consistent you are. I tell you what, if I drop 10 balls from my 5-iron distance and hit them at a hole, and then I drop 10 balls at my 9-iron distance, I can tell you I'm probably going to have a lot more birdie chances, or a lot better birdie chances with that 9-iron than I am with the 5-iron. Even if I do hit a bad one, it's probably just going to be a little chip and a putt. Whereas with my 5-iron, if I hit a bad one, it might, it's going to be a little bit more offline. Probably I may have a little bit more than that. So keep that in mind whenever you're looking for consistency. A lot of times, club head speed is going to be one thing that's going to get you a lot of consistency. All right, so a couple more minutes here. So William D says, what shaft flex should you use with each driver swing speed? So unfortunately, there is no set flex or anything for your club head speed. It's not like if you would swing 100 miles per hour, you should use a stiff shaft. That's not the way it works. Is not every company's shaft flex is the same, and the way that it flexes and where it flexes is all different too. So the only way to know what shaft is right for you is really just to go get professionally fitted. That's the only way to really know. And the other thing to keep in mind is that not all there's no standard for shaft flexes. So one company's regular flex can be the same stiffness as another company's extra stiff. You need to go in order to know what shaft is actually right for you and what club is correct for you. You have to go get professionally fitted. I recommend a place like Club Champion. I don't get paid by Club Champion by any means, but I've been there a few times. They're going to get you on a TrackMan or any. I don't know. I think they have track everywhere I've gone. They've had TrackMan, but they may have a different launch monitor in other places. But they're going to get you on a TrackMan. They're going to get you they're going to have tons of shafts. They have a wall full of shafts that they can get you in. The fitter is going to look at your swing. They're going to look at your club head speed. They're going to look at your numbers on the TrackMan. And I guarantee you, they're going to have 5 or 6 shafts probably in their mind that already they're going to be right for you. And then they're just going to try them. They're just going to put some different heads on there, put some different shafts. But that's basically what it comes down to is you got to get to know exactly what works best for you. You have to go get fitted, to know for sure. There's no way to just guess and know for sure. You have to actually go get fitted. So that's what I'd recommend doing. If you don't have, now they have club champions in major cities, all over the country. If you don't have one near you, I would Golf Digest comes out with a list every year of the top 100 fitters in the country or top fitters in every state or something like that. And I can't speak for every single one on there, but where I used to live, I looked up, kind of what was around there and what they had listed there. I knew that they were good fitters there. So it doesn't seem like it's just, it seems like they actually research it and make sure that they're good. So that would be a good reference as well. Obviously word of mouth is good, but the only way to know for sure is to go get professionally fitted. And that's what I recommend you do. So, and at Club Champion, you do not have to buy the clubs. You can, you can just pay for the fitting and then buy the club on your own. But they'll also sell you a fitted club as well. All right. So thanks everybody for joining me today. I'm sorry. It looks like we have a few more questions here. So I'll answer these last few and then we will finish up from there. So I'll finish up with James R. So Richard S. says, I feel I may be staying connected too long because of prior training. I get the last parallel in good position, but release through impact and fold up both arms. And I do not raise up early, even stay in posture too long instead of extending the arms in front and the follow through. What should I work on to fix this problem? Richard, it's hard for me to say without seeing your swing because what you're saying, things aren't adding up. You're saying that you're staying. The only way that you can probably do what you're saying is if you came through and swung basically like this. That's basically the only way. And if that's what you're doing, then you need to work on rotating your body and coming through there. It could be that you're coming down steep. It's hard to say without seeing your swing. If you'd like me to look at your swing, you can sign up for my Unlimited Swing Review program or join my waiting list, and you can do it at that time. But if you're coming down steep, meaning this club is in this kind of position at first parallel, lead arm first parallel in the downswing. If it's inside the golf ball, you're going to want to work on the move course. That's most likely what you need to work on there. So Joe D says, typically if the shoulder turn is 90 degrees at the top of the swing, what is the turn in turn? What is the turn in turn for the hips? So your average tour player is going to be about 50 degrees of turn with the hips. But, if you're at 90 degrees, you're probably turning the hips maybe about 40 degrees. It really just depends on your physical makeup. So your average tour player is about 50-degree hip turn. And then you're going to have about 50 degrees of separation from my hips. So basically my rib cage turning in relationship to my hips. There's 50 degrees there. And then you're going to get about 10 degrees of rotation from the shoulders. So the shoulders protracting and retracting. So if my shoulder is protracting, it's the shoulder blade moving away from the spine. If it's retracting, it's shoulder blade moving toward the spine. That gives me about another 20 degrees. So your average tour player overall turn is 120 degrees. 50 comes from hips. 50 comes from basically your torso. And then 20 comes from the shoulders. So pretty much everybody's going to be getting about 20 from the shoulders, unless you just have some shoulder mobility issues. Where I see most people struggle is that they don't turn the hips enough. So what I'd recommend doing is just freeing up the hips and turning as much as you possibly can. But free up the hips, let that heel come off the ground, turn this trail foot out a little bit so that you can free up the hips to turn. I just try to get them to turn as much as you can. The goal isn't necessarily to get 90. The goal is to get as much as you can and no less than 90. That's I haven't seen anybody who's not been able to get at least a 90-degree turn by making some adjustments. So you probably just need to, I would just make sure that you're getting the hips to free up pretty much as you can. You can turn your hips as much as 60 degrees, I would say, and still be in a good position. So it really just depends on the person, but for sure, free up the hips and allow them to turn as much as you can. All right. So James R says, I'm hesitant to look forward while working through. I'm hesitant to look forward by working through the 3-week 20-minute distance fix. Is this wrong, or would you suggest keeping it simple for these 3 weeks? I don't feel overwhelmed, but do have plenty of drills to keep busy. I think this is a healthy aversion right now. I'm hesitant to look forward. I mean, yeah, you can look forward to what you're going to do. I would actually, what I try to do is if I'm doing something, if I'm in the 20-minute distance fix, I would be continuing. If I'm continuing to get gains, I would do the program over again. I would just keep doing it until I basically plateau, because there's nothing that's going to be, that's what I'd be looking forward to is continuing to go through the 20-minute distance fix until you hit to a point to where you're not really getting any gains anymore. Then at that point, I would look at going through a piece of the Top Speed Golf system, or going through the move or something like that. Maybe doing the ball striking masterclass, some of those things. That's what I'd be looking at. Those are really the main things that you want to be doing is speed training, technique training, which is going to be the Top Speed Golf system and the move, and then ball striking ability, which is going to be the ball striking masterclass. So I would be looking at those pieces as things to go through. But it's okay to look forward to what you're going to do. Just stay focused on what you're doing right now, and you'll be completely fine. All right. So thanks everybody for joining me today. We'll be back here tomorrow, or sorry, not tomorrow. I won't be here tomorrow, Saturday. We'll be here Monday. We may be changing the schedule a little bit for Mondays. I'm going to be starting to shoot some videos and stuff. So when we usually shoot those on Monday. So I think we're moving the Monday one later in the day. I haven't got confirmation on that, but it's probably going to be like 5 or 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time when we're going to start doing that, the Monday office hours. We'll change it on the website and everything, but just keep in mind that next Monday we may not meet at 3 p.m. It may be later, but I'll have it on there moving forward. So thanks everybody for joining me. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.